Alright, so interesting video. It's all about racism in the context of the corona crisis. Just as a big disclaimer, this is totally my personal opinion. You know, you might disagree with it, you might agree with it, but this is personal. And what history do I have with China specifically? My best friend in kindergarten, he was always Chinese. So I got in touch with the Chinese culture very early on, you know. I went to his parents' place, went to his grandparents' place. We visited their grandparents in China. And I got really fascinated by the culture. And it's a very rich, culturally rich society. And at some point I got interested in the country economically. You know, it was like, hey, there is really something to build there. I mean, this country is progressing so fast, you need to somehow be part of it. So then I did my semester abroad in Shanghai. And then I came to Shanghai to work here. During the corona crisis, there was really a couple of things that I was witnessing, and I'm still witnessing it right now. The way it unfolded in my eyes was the following. When all this corona stuff started, it was around, you know, after New Year's. So I was in Germany, I was celebrating Christmas and New Year's with my parents and with my friends in Germany. And so I started hearing about this thing is starting in Wuhan and in China. I noticed very quickly, and I felt very sorry for that, was that some people were really, you know, starting to become very irrational. So they saw Chinese people and they were like, oh, they have the coronavirus and whatever. So kind of a racism started going around on a very low level, but still not very nice. I think for some people, some of my Chinese friends who have been living in Germany forever, but you obviously see that they are Chinese by origin, they felt very bad and I felt very sorry for them. One thing I do think is that at some point we reacted too slowly, right? So if we would have prevented flights from Wuhan and flights from China to Germany, for example, earlier on, then you know, the crisis wouldn't have escalated to that point where it has escalated right now, with the US, many countries in Europe having so many deaths that seem a bit unnecessary. But that happened and it can't be changed anymore. At that point, when there were discussions about doing these things, so closing the borders and so on, checking Chinese people from China more thoroughly, there were also some discussions in the other direction. So kind of, hey, this is racist towards Chinese people, like stop doing that. So on the one hand side, in my personal opinion, that's totally, like, that's justified. You shouldn't be racist, like racism is not good. On the other hand, it's just part of the overall situation, right? So there's a crisis, there's a virus going on in China. So you need to take certain actions that are going to be short to mid-term actions and are not going to constitute a new world order in which Chinese people are forever going to be checked. It's just something we need to do temporarily in order to make sure the virus doesn't spread. All right, so all of that didn't get done. At the same time, a little bit of racism was spreading in Europe around Chinese people, which is not good. Okay, now that the situation is reversed here in China, at least in Shanghai, I can testify because I'm here, we don't have any more corona going on. I was even in the hospital a couple of days ago because I needed to do a mandatory, like, general health check for my for being able to have my working permit here and so on. It's just administrative stuff. I didn't see any people, like the hospital was super empty. It was not like, you know, people were, or the capacity was fully filled or something like that. So in Shanghai, the situation is good. And if you trust all the official sources, also in China, the situation is under control. So there's no new cases and so on. Whereas, of course, if we now look to the US and if we look to Europe, things are much worse. Even though it's stabilizing, in Germany, for example, we are not at 100% capacity in many instances. So things are not as bad, and I think that even though I'm a heavy critic of some of the things governing party does in Germany, I would say they managed the situation all right until now. Okay, but of course, as a matter of fact, now you don't have anything in China, you have all the viruses going on abroad. What China did, and to be honest, I can't blame them, they just closed the borders. So they say no more people coming from outside shall be able to come inside, because it's just too much risk. I mean, why should we do that? Now, this is one thing totally understandable, but at the same time, then please, in my personal experience, personal opinion, please don't criticize other countries that were in the process of doing that or were thinking about doing that a couple of months ago, right? Those are double standards. So I think we should all think rationally, and whenever there's danger and we decide this is the best options, we need to close our borders. Okay, then if that's rationally seen the best option, then we need to be able to do it without someone telling us that's racist. That's something I would criticize. It's a minor thing, but just want to put that out there. And now what you see developing actually is kind of racism in the other direction. So there's more and more cases of foreigners living in China, sometimes for years and years, who are confronted with daily racism in their lives. Aware of the fact that this also happened into the other direction. So people were saying prior to that, oh, he's Chinese, he has the coronavirus, which is total nonsense. But now the same happens into the other direction. Oh, he's a Waiguaren, he's a foreigner, he must have the coronavirus, which also is nonsense, right? So I guess I'm criticizing both sides. It's both irrational and it both leads to more hate on all the sides, and it's not good at all. Now, what I find really concerning is that if you look at comments below certain videos, comments below certain articles, discussions on the web, if you take these as an indication of what people are thinking, I find this highly concerning. Because as we just found out, okay, there's racism in the one direction, there's racism into the other direction, and this inevitably leads to the fact that both sides of opinions, rather extreme opinions, they get more and more extreme. And when I read comments below some right-wing populist videos on YouTube, for example, so coming from the West, maybe like some American people, I read the comments, I want to puke, because it's very racist. It's very one-sided, it's black and white, and black and white is never the truth. There's always nuance to the truth, and that nuance needs to be explored, in my opinion. So that's concerning. On the other hand, also if I read Chinese discussion websites like Quora, the Chinese equivalent to Quora, you can also read some pretty racist things there, and that's also not good. It's too one-sided. It's not true that every foreigner has the coronavirus. It's not true that every Chinese person is a threat to Western society. All of this needs to be observed in a very nuanced way. So I guess to end this video, really what matters to me is don't see things as black and white. Once we start resorting into only extreme positions, there's no way to discuss things. And in the end, discussion is really like conversation, discussion. Discourse is how we get to the bottom of things and is how we get to a consensus. And consensus in the end is what we need in order to drive things forward in the East and in the West. So don't think black and white, keep your eyes open, look for news sources that are independent. Look for a lot of them, look for diversity in these news sources, and then form your own opinion and be ready to discuss it. Now, if you're interested, if you want, look for my video Corona Vlog, it's called, where I talk about, I show you my way from work to the office and how things are looking here in China in terms of the coronavirus, and also some things that I think the West can learn from how China, or we are currently dealing with the threat of a second wave, for example. Check that out, it's linked here, and hope you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.